Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And as you probably know by now, because I keep throwing it into you, it's my 30th birthday next week. But it's also my guest's birthday, and her book comes out on my birthday, How to Brand Like a Boss. So happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Natasha. Happy birthday to you. And yes, you just heard me sing. I don't do that very often, but because of the birthday next week, I needed to make this intro extra special. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Miss Natasha take it away.
Hello, Wynn. Thank you so much for this special introduction. You have a beautiful voice. You sound a whole lot better than I do. And happy early birthday to you as well. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm excited.
I am excited to have you on. Now, you did an interesting launch plan for this book. You actually did a mini podcast series, didn't you? And that's how I found you, by the way. And that just fascinated me. What inspired you not only to write the book, but do the mini podcast series as a launch plan for this book?
Well, that's actually a great question. Not too many people ask me that, but I was inspired to do the podcast series when my team and I were coming up with a marketing plan. But let me backtrack this a bit. This is my third book, so obviously there's been a lot of trial and error. I've learned a lot along the way of what things my audience appreciates, what things they don't really respond to. And I actually have a main podcast, Table Talk with Tardy, and we are actually going into our third season. And so right now we have about 24 episodes up, and I got so many great responses from that podcast since last summer. And so when I was deciding, well, what could I do different to not only inform my audience on, some of the topics that I'm talking about in the book, but what would be a good way for me to promote the book without, quote unquote, selling the book to people. And so because I had already gotten great responses from my first podcast, I thought that by doing a mini series where I could not only shine light on other brand builders, but also talk about and highlight a lot of the topics that I wrote about in the book, that my audience would really respond well to it. And they did. Actually, the series ended last week, and I've been getting a ton of requests to keep it going, and so that's something that I'm definitely considering. But, yeah, I wanted to just do something different. I had not seen anyone else do it before, and so I thought it would be a nice change of pace for me as an author, and so that's kind of where the inspiration came from, my first podcast.
Well, maybe you just gave me a hint. Natasha just gave me a hint. Maybe I will read the manuscript of my next book at the end of this podcast, because you guys have been counting us a bit for my next book. And so, Natasha, you just gave me a marketing idea that I might have to find. So, yay. She said, yay, because the way you did it was so cool. I'm like, okay, a podcast as a marketing tool, no pun intended. And you interviewed one of my favorite podcasters, Lena Campbell of Dreams in Drive, and I had the opportunity of interviewing her, and she does a fantastic podcast. It comes out every Monday, and she has built a brand around that podcast. So, what has been your favorite entrepreneurial moment in all this?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. My favorite entrepreneurial moment, I'll have to say, was, was it last year? I believe last year. Yeah, last year I was able to traveled to Chicago to be a part of Empire, which is a television show that comes on Fox. And my goal there wasn't necessarily to become an actress or to land a lead role, but I noticed the influence that I was having in people's lives and how they were able to watch me literally, start my first business years ago and have to shut it down and start over. Like, they pretty much watched my entire journey as an entrepreneur. But my most proud moment, I think, to date was when I got that opportunity. I was in a very low place, and I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. I wasn't sure what path I should take next as an entrepreneur because nothing seemed to be working. But when I got the opportunity and I went to Chicago, my whole mission was to show people that there are no limitations. It doesn't matter if you're, a thriving entrepreneur, if you're just getting started, but that you could physically place yourself in places that you want to be in. And for me, by me doing that, I had gotten so many responses of people saying that my story has changed their lives, or that their mindset has shifted a little bit, or that they're going to dream a lot bigger. And so even though this, proudest moment didn't directly result in, making more money or anything like that, I feel like it was my proudest moment because a lot of lives were inspired and changed. And so I have to say today that is probably like my best, I guess, entrepreneurial moment.
Oh my God. That is so cool. That is cool. So basically, were you on the set for this show?
Yes.
Or how did it work? So you
Yes.
were on the set and you got to see the filming and also at the same time influence people.
Yes, I was actually on the set. I got hired as a shareholder, so it was an extra role, but I did get to film with Taraji Henson and Terrence. Actually, the scene that we filmed, all of the stars of the show were there. So we were actually there. It was a 14-hour day, and we filmed like nonstop. So I was able to see how things work on a set, and like I said, to just be there and absorb the energy, and to also use it as a networking opportunity to meet people who actually do this for a living. It was just so inspiring, and I came back home with a new attitude and with a different outlook on life in general.
And I bet you did, because a lot of us don't know, well, you know this, a lot of us who listen to podcasts don't know how much work it takes to produce a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
it's the same thing with 20-minute TV show. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of manpower. Yes, it's a long 14-hour day. And standing on your feet in high heels. Yes, they do that. And so, yes, they do that. Stand in high heels for 14 hours. Ouch. But that's what actors do to pull off a 20-minute scene or 30 minutes.
Right.
So what would be your best advice to solo entrepreneurs that have challenges in their lives? And I'm not talking about physical or mental disabilities, although this show gears towards physical and mental disabilities. But I'm talking about writing a book. I was talking to someone this morning. I'm actually involved with another veteran program, Vivadi, and I had a mentee call me out of the blue this morning and asked me, how do you write a book? So I thought, okay, now I need to ask Natasha her advice, because a lot of people have, I want to write a book, but yet they don't know where to start. They are too scared to put pen to paper, or they are too scared to open Siri on the iPhone and just start, hello, my name is X, Y, and Z. Here's my story. So I think that you need to give people advice on that one. How did you start your first book, and how did you come to the conclusion I need to write Landing Like a Boss?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I actually, and it's funny that you asked me this question, because last night I was a part of a Twitter chat where the highlight topic was about blogging. And that's actually how I got inspired to write my first book. And I'll just be honest, it was not, writing a book was like a childhood dream. I never thought that I could do it. My mom has always been a writer. I mean, since I've been a kid, she's been writing curriculums and programs, but it was never something that I saw myself doing until I, obviously an adult, and I started blogging. And I stumbled into the whole blogging world after I, dropped out of college, and I really didn't have clear direction on what I wanted to do next. Obviously, this was many years ago. But I looked to blogs online to inspire and motivate me to, make better life decisions and to kind of navigate me into the right direction. And so I looked to blogs for motivation, and in response, because I saw what it did for my life, I decided to launch my own, which at the time was called Table Talk with Toddy, and now that's the actual name of my podcast. And so one of my first blog post series was in response to questions that I received often about, well, how do you, continue to run your business while you are working a 9-to-5? That was a question that I got often. And so I said, well, let me answer this question in the form of a blog post series so that I can not only build my blog audience, but that I can answer this question, and when people ask me, I can redirect them back to my blog. So I did a 10-day blog post series called 10 Ways to Start Your Business with $0. And that was like the best blog post series that I ever wrote because the response was really great. And I think the content was easy to understand, and they were able to take away and actually take action as far as their pursuits. And so I got pregnant with my son, and obviously I started thinking, okay, I've got to figure out a way to generate some passive income. I've got to make some extra money because taking care of a child is, an extra expense. It's a lot. And so one night I was listening to a free call by a publisher, and she was basically sharing some of the advantages of writing books. And so I said, what could I write a book about? And my mind immediately went back to that blog post series that I had wrote. So what I did was I took the series down once the traction started to go down, I wasn't getting many views on it anymore. Took it down off the site, and I elaborated on each of those 10 points and shared my life experiences. And by the time my son had turned 3 months old, I had self-published the book. Now, that was in 2014. That was in June 2014 on my birthday. So every year on my birthday, I work something new, and normally it's a book. So on my birthday in 2014, I released this book. And since then, I try to write a book at every stage of my journey because all of my experiences are new. My perspective is different, and I feel like in each book I can offer a different part of my life versus cramming everything into one book. So that's kind of how we've gotten to now book number 3, Brand You Like a Boss. And in this book, I'm literally sharing all of the strategy that I've used to build my brand really from scratch. I'm sharing, kind of what my thought process is when I'm getting ready to launch a new project and all of that good stuff. And so each stage since that first book has definitely been a different chapter of my life for sure.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I wrote my first book when I was 23 years old. Now I am almost 30 each, and so I'm now writing a new book as I enter into my second decade of life here. It's a little scary.
Uh-huh.
But I am planning on doing a secret project starting on Wednesday of next week because, Natasha, you inspired me again to start a secret project starting Wednesday of next week, and you guys won't know what it is. I am doing something secret. It involves a book. It involves a self-published book, but that's all I'm telling. So you guys have to keep an eye out because it involves a book, but I'm going to start it next Wednesday. So I will start the writing process all over again, and it will probably come out in 2018. We'll see how it goes, but if it comes out sooner, closer to my 31st birthday, that's fine. If it comes out sooner, that's fine. So, Natasha, you gave me the kick in the ass that I needed.
Awesome. That's what you call it. We're going to hold each other accountable, Lynn. We're going to hold each other. I'm going to look forward to that book. I'm going to keep checking on you.
Accountability, buddy.
I'm excited.
Yes. Accountability, buddy. So, Natasha, what is your favorite tool that you use on a daily basis?
I love Evernote. Evernote is like my pen pal in middle school. I have the app on my phone and I have one on my computer, and it literally is like the place where I just release all of my thoughts, my feelings. It's kind of like a diary in my pocket, and it's free to use, and I've been using it for now maybe going on 3 years, and I just like highly recommend it. There are times where I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with an idea, and I can just jot it down in my Evernote. So I have to say that definitely is my favorite tool, not even just in business, but in life, because I'm sure you know, because you're a creative, we get ideas all day long, and sometimes you can't really make out what the idea means right away, but you have to write it down, or you'll forget it. So for me, that is definitely my favorite tool of all times out of everything I've ever used. Evernote has got to be the best thing. And what makes it even better is that it syncs. And so if you write something on it from your computer and then you sync it, it'll automatically go to the app on your phone. So it saves you time. It saves you from having to do a lot of extra work. And like I said, it's really like a cool little sidekick to have just to jot down your ideas.
Well, isn't that cool? And I should probably start using Evernote for my secret project that I'm working on. And so, Natasha, one last question, and then I'm going to ask where can people find the book and where can people get you and get in touch with you. Then I'm going to turn it over to you to ask me a couple of questions that you've been dying to ask me about anything. But first, if you had to be educated, and I apologize for the brief coughing attack, if you had to be educated by anyone, who would it be and why, inside and outside your field?
Tony Robbins. I am obsessed with Tony Robbins. I feel like he brings a different approach in this day and age. It's really straightforward, and I think it comes because he's so passionate. And if you ever heard his story, you probably have. He comes from really a hard life, and that just is a constant reminder to me that if he can go from a harsh life that he came from to where he is now, helping millions of people around the world, that I can do it too. But not only that, this man has some principles instilled inside of him that I don't yet have. And I feel like if I were to get the opportunity to maybe go to one of his seminars, even have the money to hire him one day one-on-one, I feel like my whole life would really make a complete change and turn. So if I had to pick anyone to get educated from, it would definitely be Tony Robbins. Definitely. Are you still there?
The host has joined the conference.
Natasha,
Yes.
I need you, because my phone died, I need you to say who you're going to be educated again. I'm going to hit the record button. I didn't want you to think I just been completely. I tried to call as quickly as I could back in. Please.
That's fine. We can just pick back up where we left off. No worries.
Yes, no worries. So let's do this.
Okay.